I'm Thomas, and you're listening to the Gracing Podcast, where today you're in for a special doubleheader episode with two really cool guests. First, I invited Morgan Aguirre on the show. You probably heard that she is going to be in the next Life Time Grand Prix edition, and I asked her to come on and talk about her preparation for being in the Life Time Grand Prix, how it is to find out that you're in, and what actually the steps are that you have to take in order to prepare for a project like this, especially as a European-based rider. And then I asked Holy Spirit of Gravel to come on to close the book on the 2025 season by talking through the favorite storylines, the overarching narrative arc, so to speak, of the season. And this we did. So, two very fun conversations in one podcast episode. But before we get there, a quick update on the All Gravel Awards, because the nominations are in and you can now jump over on the escapecollective.com and vote. So they helped us to, get even more attention for the awards, bring it in front of a bigger audience, which obviously I appreciate a lot. And we ran an article with all the nominations, all the infos on the procedure, if you choose to care about details like this. And you can vote at the end of the article on all the awards. So that is all there. It's of course not behind their paywall. You don't have to register or anything. You can just open it, and I will make sure to put the link in the show notes. Just let's very briefly go through the nominations for all the awards so you can already start thinking about who you will put your vote in for. Let's begin with the Most Valuable Rider Award. So, MVP Man nominations. Cameron Cam Jones, Lachlan Morton, Matthew Matt Beers, Simon Pilot, Keegan Swenson. So far, not that many surprises. Maybe I'm a bit surprised to see Lachlan on there, but I also see where that's coming from. On the women's side, we have Sofia Gomez-Villafañe, Carolina Migon, Rosa Klöser, and Ruth Holcomb. You probably know she won the U23 Lifetime Grand Prix Award in dominating fashion. So she made it on this list. A bit of a surprise, but interesting. Next, Most Improved Riders. On the men's side, we have Cameron Cam Jones, Torbjörn André Roth, André L'Espérance, Braden Lang, Tobias Mort Kongstedt, and Mattis Lohmann. By the way, if you don't remember how that stuff worked, we assembled a 11 people strong expert panel to make the nominations and cast their votes, and now all you out there can vote. So if you look at how many people are nominated for a given award, you can already get an idea how united the expert panel was or how far spread the options were. On to the women. Most Improved Rider, women nominations are Axel Dubot-Prévost, Cecily Decker, Melissa Rollins, Cecile Lejeune, Gerike G. Schreurs, Morgan Aguirre, Courtney Sherwell, and Carolina Migon. On to the next one. Most Exciting Newcomer. On the men's side, there are Mats Würzschmidt, Griffin Hoppin, Simon Pilot, Jan Stöckli, and Magnus Bach-Klaris. On the women's side, Cecile Lejeune, Sarah Lang, Ruth Holcomb, Annika Langwart, and Larissa Hartog. By the way, if just rattling all the names off isn't enough for you and you want more insights, if you didn't yet, there is the podcast I did with JP. You can listen to it. It is just in the feed where you found this episode. And over on my Substack, the Gravel Stack, I wrote in detail about my personal ballots for all these awards. So next one, Most Impressive Performance. On the men's side, there is Rob Britton at Unbound XL, Tobias Kongstad at Trucker 360, Cam Jones at Unbound, Matt Beers at Big Sugar, Matt Beers at Lauf Gravel Worlds, and John Gaston at Leadville 100. On the women's side, Axel Dubois-Prévost at Gravelburn, Carolina Migon at Unbound, Hayley Batten at Sea Otter, Morgan Aguirre at The Hills, Cecily Decker at Unbound, Sofia Gomez Villafanier at Big Sugar. Then, most interesting setup. On the men's side, Chase Walk at Unbound, Lachlan Morton at Unbound XL, and Cassius Anderson in general, plus Niels Corvon at The Rift. On the women's side, we have Hayley Hunter-Smith at Migration Gravel, Kate Courtney at Leadville, Hannah Shell at Unbound, Cecily Decker at Lauf Gravel Worlds, Lael Wilcox at Transcontinental, Svenja Beetz at Badlands, Caro Migon at Trucker 360. Okay. Now we leave the individual rider awards and talk about first the best gravel team. On the men's side, we have Par Racing, Track Driftless, Hit Squad, Classified, X Rose, and Rose Racing Circle. On the women's side, there is Par Racing, Rose Racing Circle, and, well, I greenlit it as an option, even though maybe it doesn't hit all the criteria, but it's Louise Valentin and Lucy Hempstead for Waiting with Clara Sophie Skofgard Hansen at Unbound. Maybe you remember this episode, so they made it onto this list. Gravel Race of the Year. Nominations are Gravelburn, Unbound, Lauf Gravel Worlds, The Trucker, and UCI Gravel World Series Icelag Luxembourg. Last two categories are the coverage awards. First, the best gravel race. There is Core 4, Lauf Gravel Worlds, Unbound, The Trucker, Migration Gravel, and Gravelburn. Pretty much the expected races on there. And lastly, best live coverage. Nominated are Lauf Gravel Worlds, Unbound 200, UCI Gravel World Championships, and The Trucker 360. So, these are the decisions you have to make for your ballot. It's a simple Google form at the end of the article that you can fill in. If you do so, really interested in seeing where you guys and girls end up on. And now I'm joined by Morgan Aguirre. Hi.
Hi, how are you?
Doing well. Nice to have you back on. So for our listeners, the history of this is pretty straightforward. You were accepted into the Life Time Grand Prix, and we ended up exchanging a message or two. And I asked you if you would be willing to hop on to talk through Life Time Grand Prix preparation, because this is going to be a first time for you as well. But let's start maybe before you got accepted. When was the point that you decided you would apply? Was it clear all the time, or did you see the prize purse and decided, oh, I got to apply?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think my backstory with the Lifetime is maybe a little bit unique, maybe not. But I think it's something that I kind of knew all year, all of 2025 season that I wanted to do. And frankly, since I started racing gravel, it was something that was on my mind. Actually, the Lifetime had only started about a year after I started racing bikes altogether. So it was kind of always that like really cool thing to do, like always looked up to the riders in the series. But I will say it was never something that I wanted to do until I really believed that I could be competitive.
That makes sense.
Because for me, it's logistically a big deal. There's a lot of money on the line. It takes a lot of resources. And so to allocate all those resources to something and maybe we'll end up like 18th or something just didn't feel worth it. So I think I wanted to wait until I felt ready to compete at the top of the series. And I think this last season, I kind of felt like I was there. So I think I knew for a while. It definitely wasn't like, oh, I made a last minute decision at the end of the season, or, oh, I saw the prize money. Although that helped quite a bit. It was definitely something I spent most of last season thinking about.
So maybe for context, you are obviously American, but also you live in Girona, and I don't know if that is correct, but I recently heard someone say that even your entire family moved with you to Girona, or at least your parents or so. You can correct me, is that's the case, right?
Yeah, it is true. My parents are here in Girona. They're like 5 minutes walking from me, which is quite convenient.
Lovely.
Yeah, so we're all over here.
And so I would assume that maybe the Life Time Grand Prix, given that it has in American cycling a special role these days, is probably special to you, even emotionally, but then logistically pretty far away because it's on the other side of the planet. But have you? Does it have like a special place in your cyclist heart because it's a US-based competition that is really big globally, at least among gravel fans?
Yeah, it's funny because I don't have much experience racing road. I sort of started in gravel, I would say. And it's weird because my gravel racing career or experience started over here in Girona about 3 years ago, which feels a little bit weird because I think a lot of people, when they think of gravel, they think of gravel, the US being sort of the home of gravel racing and kind of where things started. So it's sort of interesting that actually my gravel experience has mostly been over here in Europe, aside from a few races. So yeah, it does feel special to be going back, and I just feel like there's a whole other world of people to get to know and ways of racing, and I'm excited. It's like a new challenge, and it almost feels like a bit of a homecoming in some ways, getting to race back in the US and figure out the scene.
So how did you end up in Girona if you started cycling there, or at least your gravel career? You didn't go for cycling reasons, or did you?
No, I actually didn't. I moved in 2022 to Girona, and it was purely because I had a job that let me work remote. So half of our team that I was working with was over in Europe. And I was dating someone who lives in Girona. And I did ride bikes at the time. So I was familiar with bikes, but I definitely moved over here with zero ambitions of becoming a professional cyclist. It was really like, I live in the rain. It'd be nice to live somewhere sunny and ride my bike. I can work remote. So why not? And then things kind of snowballed.
Presumably, I mean, I have never actually been to Girona so far, which I think is going to change in 2026 as well. But like, it's hard to imagine that you could spend prolonged time in the city and not start cycling in some way, shape, or form these days. Or
Definitely, yeah. And I wonder about that sometimes. It's a great place to ride a bike, and obviously a great place to be a professional cyclist. But sometimes now I wonder, if I'm not, riding a bike for a living, like, is it somewhere I could see myself staying? I don't know. We'll see. But it's a good place to be for now.
But your plan going back to the Life Time Grand Prix is to stay in Girona, living in Girona, and do it from Europe.
Yes. So yeah, the logistics are definitely not the most straightforward. Because yes, I would say Girona is my home and where I will be for the majority of the year. But I think a couple things make it more feasible. One, that I am American, which means I don't have to deal with visa issues as far as going back and forth. And two, just having friends and family over there. So as of now, the way I've sort of set up this season is thinking about like just blocks of time over there, and how to avoid some of the back and forth. So for now, it looks like I'll probably be doing 4 trips back and forth to the States. But yeah, I think the plan is to kind of go back and forth, but stay for good chunks of time in the US.
Looking at the calendar, essentially the same as last year when we talk about races in the Grand Prix, which ones are you really looking forward to, and which ones are you potentially not looking forward to?
Yeah,
or less so?
No, definitely. It's an interesting calendar. It's also interesting too that a lot of the mountain biking is in the back half of the season. We don't have to do a mountain bike race until August, which gives me a little bit of time to figure that piece out. Although I'm excited about that. I think races I'm looking most.
How much mountain biking do you do? Or have you done? Like in
Well,
Girona, I think many people also occasionally mountain bike, but you're
yeah,
taking
I would say
something.
occasionally, like in the preseason last year, I did some mountain biking. Occasionally throughout the year, just easy rides. But I have not raced a mountain bike, so we'll see. But I do really enjoy it. So we'll see. There's lots to learn. I do think one of the races I think will be the most daunting is definitely Leadville. I think for a lot of people, even if it's not your first year, it's a race that's really a bit of a logistical nightmare in that, it takes altitude, but not too much altitude. And well, you have to acclimate to 3,000 meters, but you can't just hang out there, or do you? So there's a lot of unknowns, I think, when you're going into it in your first year. So that's a bit of a tricky one, I would say, probably.
I assume you did some research already and chatted to other women in the Life Time Grand Prix with some experience. Do you have a guesstimate ballpark figure of how many of the contenders in the Grand Prix or the racers in the Grand Prix actually have a dedicated Leadville altitude block these days? Is it closer to 100%, 50%?
From what I understand, I do think it's almost 100%. I think there are very few people. I think at this point, with how competitive the Lifetime has also become and the field has become, I think at this point, there isn't probably anyone that's just writing off any race entirely. And I think if you don't go up to altitude before Leadville, you are essentially writing off performance at the race. So I would say it's almost 100% from what I know. I think the real question is, I know a lot of different people play with, well, do I do a regular altitude camp 3 weeks at 2,200 meters and then go up higher? Do I actually try to stay up for 3 weeks at 3,000 meters? But then I think you run the risk of hurting the rest of your season or the rest of that chunk of time because you're kind of exhausted. So it'll be a bit of an experiment to see how we make it work, but definitely talking to coach and figuring out how to give it the best shot.
Do you have like a lot of experience already yourself doing altitude blocks essentially?
I actually don't. So last year was the first season that I've ever experimented with altitude. And after Unbound, I went up to Park City for 3 weeks until Oregon Trail. And actually, the training itself was great. I think everything kind of went the way we would have thought. However, I ended up crashing about 5 days before I went down and kind of messing up my knee a bit. So at this point, I can't tell if it was the altitude that didn't go so well. It was the crash. It was just going straight into a 5-day stage race with camping. I don't know. So at this point, I have a little bit of a fear of altitude because I've done it now once. It didn't go so well. And so I have some stuff to figure out. So I'll actually be going January to February to Colombia to train with Carolina. And we'll do an altitude block preseason to try to work out some of the kinks.
All right, Colombia. Yeah, that sounds like a good place to do so.
It'd be fun.
Simon also spent like a lot of time preseason last year in Colombia. I mean, he lives there.
Yep.
Even though I don't know how much time he spends there because he's traveling all the time between China and North America. But I think he prepared there and it went well. So maybe.
Yeah, I think it's a great place to ride a bike. So it'll be it'll be an experience. But there's not all that many places you can go to do an altitude block in the winter. So, it's one of the more reasonable options.
And then how does it work? Because if I'm correctly informed, the perfect timing of when to come down from altitude to gain the effects is rather individual. So it's like a 1 to 2 week window before competition or whatnot. So you really have to time it, especially before Leadville, then not the winter one, but before Leadville. So
yeah, I think it's highly individual, which is why I'm hoping this winter to essentially test it and kind of see what works, what feels good. Because I don't think at this point I know. I think anywhere from 1 to even 3 weeks, you kind of feel or benefit from the effects. But then there are some people that like 3 days down at altitude and they feel great. So it sort of just depends. I know there's some people that really need to get like the speed in their legs after they come down, and some people that just are flying. So we'll see. It's totally an experiment.
Yeah, for sure. So you already said that you are looking at the US trips to the Lifetime races in kind of blocks that you're going to do over there. Based on the plan that you currently have, how many transcontinental flights will the season involve for you?
Yeah, so for now, at least the way, I feel like all of this is subject to change, but the way I've worked it out now, I think it'll be 4 trips back and forth to the US.
Yeah, that's like one, it's considerable in terms of the expense that you need to take on, and then also, of course, it creates stress because every time that is stressful. Plus, I'm also hearing like to get to these locations, it's not you just fly over the ocean, or you also have to drive sometimes hours on end in the US.
Yeah, the US is a bit of a logistical like nightmare, even on its own. Without the Grand Prix, I think there is something quite convenient about how people get around to gravel races in Europe, and having the option to travel. And maybe you have a 5-hour drive or something, but in the US, the fact that it's almost a given that anywhere you go, you're going to sit on the plane for 3 hours and then maybe drive another 3 hours is, it's a bit daunting.
That's how you end up having these remote places with just like super wide gravel roads, though, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah, exactly. That's where the gravel is.
Yeah,
Nebraska, Kansas.
Yeah. Can you give already like a idea to the listeners and to myself as well what a Lifetime Grand Prix contenders budget should look like if they try to do the series from Europe, just for the travel and accommodation expenses?
Yeah, honestly, I probably am not the best person to ask because I am racing again next year with Paz Racing, and they cover our travel expenses. But I would say in 2024, I spent some time kind of figuring out this included maybe 2 trips back and forth. I would say realistically to do a proper Grand Prix calendar, back and forth 4 times, which for me is possible. I know a lot of people can't just go and do 2 5-week blocks over there. But I would have to imagine you're looking at least 15 to 20,000 for travel. Again, that could be just a very large ballpark, but I think between the flights back and forth, finding lodging sometimes when you have a period like Little Sugar to Big Sugar, that's a 2-week period that you're spending in Bentonville, which is not an inexpensive place at that time of year. So
not at all.
It's not a small budget. That's certainly the case.
I don't know if you can already talk about how, because PA, I'm hearing, is changing a bit, and already like earlier this year when I talked to Tobias, he told me that they want to do some changes to how PA is working. But maybe you can at least tell us if you are still going to have some of your own sponsors next season.
Yeah, just as we did this year as well, there will still be the opportunity for sponsorship as well for next year. So kind of similar, I would say, to this year.
Because that would lead to my next question, which is, if you prepare your application for Lifetime and the Grand Prix, how much are you at this point already in discussions with your sponsors? And then in your case, obviously your team, but just to generalize this a bit broader. And because I heard stories, and I didn't confirm them, but I believe fully that they are true, that people, the budget that they get from their sponsors will highly depend on whether or not they get in the Lifetime Grand Prix, and even the kind of expenses. And with like the considerable cost that goes into it just to be there at the start line and race these events, I would assume that you have to, on the back end, also work this all out while you're in the process.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's interesting. I actually heard, I'm sure I know exactly what you're talking about. And I think maybe it was Payson's like podcast. They were talking about this with Sarah. And it sounds like it's definitely the case that some people's contracts are dependent, or their contingencies based on entering the Lifetime. But it's interesting because I think for me specifically, and maybe this is because, yes, I'm an American, but I'm riding over in Europe and my sponsors are European, that I actually don't think I have any Lifetime, like there are no contingencies in any of my contracts. And I think, Orbea is really excited about me racing the Lifetime. That's something that aligns well with what they want to do. But if it wasn't something that I ended up doing, I think it would have been all the same, being at the biggest races. So that's kind of nice because it doesn't add any pressure. As far as like talking to, Paz Normal handles our sort of travel expenses. And that was definitely something I was very clear with them in the beginning, that this was a goal and something I'd like to do. And they were more than happy to support that. I think if you want to have the best gravel racers on a team, I think it's kind of natural that they at some point would have an interest in doing the Lifetime Grand Prix.
Do you have the impression that European brands also look at it like a marquee event? At least from your experience, because I'm getting mixed signals on this, how it is actually perceived in like the normal European bike world, where most sponsors come from. They are not super deep into gravel for the most part. What's your impression there? Is it more like, oh yeah, the Lifetime Grand Prix, or are they more like UCI, Gravel Earth Series, whatever you do, it's all good for us?
Yeah, I definitely get the sense that the European sponsors are more keyed into, like you said, the UCI races, the Earth Series. I think that's shifting slightly, but I think it would be entirely different if I was, had a full team of just US sponsors, or even US contingencies of, my sponsors. So I do think it would change, but I do still get the sense that European sponsors are more interested in UCI races, the Earth Series, racing over in Europe, which makes sense. I mean, that's where their sort of audience is based for the most part.
Yeah, I think it kind of makes sense. And then on the other hand, like, as all of gravel anyways is like digital media these days. And I did a post not that long ago where I looked at all the live stream viewership data of all gravel races that were live streamed this year. Saw without the UCI Gravel World Championships, because they were in most countries broadcast on TV, and so we don't have comparable data. But so they live on another plane. But besides that, like the runaway two races with the most views were top one Unbound and second Leadville. And then Trucker a distant third, to give you an idea, like 360,000 views on Unbound, 220,000 on Lifetime, and 73 on the Trucker 360 live stream. So
interesting.
That is a big difference. And then I didn't check like all the other media output, like on Instagram, and what the view numbers on there and engagement figures on there are, but like they are, when it comes to awareness generated, by far the best. And I don't know what percentage of their audience is US-based versus international. But I would assume that just globally, if you are interested in gravel racing, then you will also follow the Life Time Grand Prix.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I mean, I think that the viewers, in that sense, who are watching live streams and things like that, that's sort of regardless of location. But it is interesting, as I was going through the sort of sponsorship process for next year, it was interesting to note just the very stark differences between, like, let's say you have, Schwalbe. You have Schwalbe in the US, and then you have obviously Schwalbe Europe. And, it's interesting to see, same with, Orbea or, some of these other larger brands. And it's interesting to see that, those operate in two very different ways, with separate budgets, with separate, athletes. So that's been kind of interesting. And I think for me, as an American rider who's kind of based over here in Europe, I think I can sort of play to both of those markets, which is nice, is beneficial for me. But it will be interesting to see, going through the process of the Lifetime, and, should things go well and I would decide to continue racing the series, would that mean that then I would start working with more, US focused sponsors or not? Would be interesting to see how it evolves.
Let's get back to the racing a bit. How do you approach the series from like a prioritization mental model standpoint? Is it for you the entire series, the clear priority next year? And do you intend to do all the races regardless how the first part goes? Or is there a part of you, which we saw, I would say most or many of the European contenders in the last years, do the option like, if the first half of the Grand Prix doesn't go that well, you will reprioritize and probably focus on stuff that doesn't require travel to the US all the time?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a hard question to answer, and maybe until you're in that situation, because as of right now, I guess it's like, I can't see a world where, it doesn't go well. I'm like, absolutely not. Would I ever get to that point? That being said, I think when you commit to the series, you commit to finishing the series. And I think that's super important. I think it's a privilege to get into the series. And I think it's a really nice guide to have these 6 races as, okay, that's where my priority lies. And obviously the Traca is still a really big race. And there's some other key ones that I'm looking at. But I think it makes it easy to make decisions about what your A races are when you have the Lifetime. I think that, it would be unfortunate to have some mechanicals or have some issues in the beginning and then sort of get motivated to come back for a race like Schwalm again. But again, I committed to the series, and so I'm definitely committed to seeing through all 6 races.
Which also means you don't intend to skip Little Sugar to do the Worlds in Australia, the World Champs.
As of now, no. I mean, I could see a world where, based on how the season goes, that's not the case. But I'm hopeful that the season will go well, and I'll be in a position to, fight for some results around that time. And I think I committed to the series. And so popping over to Australia for 5 days or so is probably not.
I mean, which can make for difficult decisions. So I already heard some people tell me that like they intend to skip Little Sugar this year to do Worlds and then go back to Big Sugar, but really depending on how the standings are. And like, I know that in her case it was related to health reasons as well, but Cecily Decker, your teammate, obviously she skipped Little Sugar this year, and like that was when her opportunity to win the series ended after this. I mean, who knows what would have happened if she would have been in the race, but by virtue of Sophia winning the race, she just she just won the series as well. So
I think, and I know a lot of people, like a lot of the Europeans, find it kind of frustrating. This like that Schwalm is, it's a 2-hour mountain bike race, which as a gravel cyclist, a 2-hour race doesn't feel like anything maybe worth traveling across, 4. But I think again, to me, it feels like you commit to the series. And that's not something I guess I take lightly, because I know there are a lot of other people that would love the opportunity to be in the series.
Yeah.
And come the end of the year, we'll see what happens. But I think hopefully I'm in a place where it makes sense to race both Little Sugar and Big Sugar.
Yeah. Just as a rider, how annoying is it that you have to make this decision between Life Time and the World Championships? Allegedly, the first ones that a gravel pro can win.
Yeah.
It cannot be satisfying, can it?
Yeah, it's a bit unfortunate. I think, I think as most people are aware, the gravel world champs in the past have not really been ones that suit gravel riders, just sort of less technical, faster racing. And I think it sounds like Australia will be maybe the first one to do that. So it's an unfortunate decision to have to make. And I know some people that have already made the decision, like you said, the opposite, that, it's worth it to them to go race world champs over something like Little Sugar. But I think to each their own, and everyone's kind of thinking about their own sponsors and their own results in different ways.
What was, besides like the travel and all this, when you thought through the next season and the preparation, the stuff that you have to do, the thing that you maybe wasn't aware initially, but the deeper you got, that it surprised you, that you think is going to be the most challenging part about next season, or just the most interesting?
I think I've been a little stuck recently in trying to sort out. This will probably be the first year I've ever really prioritized races. I think, you're always supposed to pick your A races, right? But I think I've been very much of the mentality, and maybe it was just with sort of previous coaching, that, I want to be good for everything. And I think that's just, I'm really learning it's just not possible. That's not how you become the best at any one thing, is if you try to be sort of just good at everything. And I've actually found it quite difficult now to sort through how to be ready for something like the Hills, maybe, or Sea Otter, which are sort of shorter, more punchy type races, and then balance that with trying to race 2 weeks later the Traca. And so now I'm sort of in this, do I do the 200 or the 360? The 360 prepares you better for Unbound, whereas maybe the 200, with some of that punch that you have from Sea Otter, you're better prepared for. And then going into something like Unbound 4 weeks later. So I think the hardest part has been trying to manage maybe where my priorities lie, and getting away from this mindset that we're going to be good for everything. It's like, no, we're going to be good for some things, and we're going to be okay for other things. But that's been difficult.
If we look at last season in the Life Time Grand Prix, obviously Sophia, and also in the seasons prior, she won a lot of the races, and she also won the overall. But do you think that we are going in a direction where you either have to focus on consistency above all else to go for the overall, or you say you want to win a race and then you really go all in and structure your training for this race? Or are we still at a place where you think you can be competitive for the GC and also go for races? And that's leaving aside just a tactical dimension, which of course, the later we are in the Grand Prix, that can also factor in how people approach the races. But I mean more from a training physiology standpoint, as you were talking about this.
Yeah, I think the way that the races are spaced out, there is an opportunity to really be in, maybe not peak fitness for every single one of them, but to be pretty close. But I also think that really takes balancing the season properly, right? You have the start in April, and you have Little Sugar and Big Sugar all the way at, mid October. So I think balancing how you load the season. But yeah, I think I would definitely like to give consistency is important, but also with the prize money that they have now for each individual race, I think that if you can target specific races, obviously for me, I'm not a mountain biker. So I think
you're
I
not
would
targeting Little Sugar, maybe.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, I think there are some races that naturally, like I think something like Leadville, awesome race, super cool, would be great to do well, but with so many unknowns, it's maybe more of a, we'll see. We'll do our best. So naturally, there seem to be some races that will just be less of a priority.
That makes sense. And as you just described in the beginning, you are still going to do the altitude camp and so on, and you want to have a good result, but maybe it's not the A priority, being peak shape for this day at Leadville.
Yeah.
And like, are you coached? Or?
Yes. Yeah. So I do. I'm working now, kind of recently with Thomas Bungard. So yeah.
Did you already have like the sessions where you sit down and you talk through all the races and how they work and what kind of fitness you need to target? You already, how long does this take to get a coach? I don't know if Thomas is super deep in gravel racing already and knows all these races or not.
Yeah. Yeah. That is the really nice part, is that, he has experience obviously working with, other athletes in the space. He knows gravel. He's raced gravel himself. So he is very familiar with how it works. But I do believe that the altitude piece will be something that's new for me. And that's something that, he can't just wave a magic wand and figure out. So we're kind of going to have to hold our hands and figure that out together. But we have sat down and discussed sort of calendar, what that might look like, altitude camps, and made a bit of a plan. So we'll see.
Based on the people you associate with in gravel, be that as friends or as teammates, I assume that you were maybe not highly surprised when you saw all the new entrants to the Life Time Grand Prix this year. But when you saw them and you saw you're also part of this, what did go through your mind? And obviously, I'm referring for everybody who is by now not aware to the fact that Rosa Klöser is going to be in there. We are going to have Carolina Migon in the Life Time Grand Prix, which are probably the standout new additions. Then yourself, Sarah Sturm. So when you saw the roster, what did you think?
Definitely excited, because both Rosa and Caro, I feel very close to as far as gravel racing goes and friendship. So it's sort of fun, because I almost feel like, great, I get to go back to the US to race with my European girls, which is fun. So that'll be exciting. And yeah, Sarah definitely didn't surprise me. I mean, I know she took sort of a sabbatical for a year, but she had a really strong season, and it definitely makes sense that she would return. So no, I think it naturally makes sense. I wasn't, I guess, shocked, because maybe I had some insight into what they were going to do. But it's really cool. And I think it just raises the bar for the series. And I know there was some hesitation on the Lifetime's part to admit more Europeans because of the logistics. But I think you can't really say no to the two previous winners of Unbound. And yeah, they'll raise the bar for racing, and it'll be exciting to watch.
One thing that I at some point looked into this season was like, how many head-to-head races did we have between Rosa and Sophia? and it was surprisingly little, 5 overall and 3 last year. And then, of course, one of them, Sophia, had to DNF, Lauf Gravel Worlds, because she wasn't there. So we did get these two face off very little. And like the boxing analogy would maybe be like Holyfield, Frazier or whatever. So you want to see them race against each other more times, and then throw in Caro yourself. So the women's field, like on this basis, is going to be crazy. Like it's a dream come true for all gravel fans to have all of you in this season. And I think we never had such a stacked women's field, especially at the high end.
No, I agree. I think it'll make it super exciting. And that's been the one bummer or like issue I found with racing gravel outside of a series. And, even the Earth Series, they did their best to build a series. But if you don't require everyone to be at the same races, there's a chance you just don't know who's going to show up on the start line. And I don't know, in some ways it adds pressure because everyone's going to be there, but in other ways it sort of takes away the guessing. And I do think, even in gravel racing last year, you definitely do guessing. You're like, who's at the Rift? Who's actually going to race? Who's not going to race? And so you sort of have no idea what you're going into every race. And so it'll be nice to know that there will be consistency in who we race with, get to know people. I mean, even Rosa, I feel like as close as we are, like, I feel like I didn't race her that much last year when I think about it. And so, it'll be fun to have everyone in the same races and just get to know how other people ride bikes and who has what strengths, and it'll be fun and dynamic and hopefully, make for some good viewing.
You didn't do that much racing in the US before. How familiar are you with like the US contenders, especially those who don't race over here all the time? Like Sarah, obviously, she raced a lot here, and Sophia rarely did, like only the Trucker 200. I think you also raced the 200 last year, right?
Yeah.
So there you raced her, but like, do you know them or did you already study them?
Yeah, a little bit of both. Because I followed the Grand Prix for so long, or since it started, I'm familiar with the US names, probably just as familiar as I am with the women in the Europe. I would say maybe less familiar with everyone's particular skill sets. I think you learn that just from racing with people who rides
especially because we don't get to see that many races live, right? And that is like one of the things. In this year, we did get a lot more than the year before. And so that helps so much with seeing people. And then it depends on how many cameras do you have and how much do you actually see, but it helps so much. And if you follow road racing, then you know who is a great climber and who does what. But in gravel, we are not there. So it's much more fuzzy. And by being in the races, like you say, you learn.
You learn, definitely. Yeah. And I've picked up on things, certainly from watching the live streams and following all the live lifetime content, as well as having raced Oregon Trail, Unbound. What else have I done in the US? We did a little, well, I guess Gravel Locos, there wasn't really that many people there, but I've done a few, races here and there. Obviously familiar with Sarah. She's been over here. Raced Sophia a handful of times, Michaela, some of the other American contenders, but not for that long. So it'll be kind of like a whole new world to figure out, but super cool that we get to do it 6 times, which will make it really fun.
Did you already get like a briefing from Lifetime about what they need in terms of media and so on for you? Because that I feel like they also do a good job at. And is that already all clear? And if so, what can you share about this side?
To be honest, I haven't heard much yet. I'm sure that it's all coming. Yes, I agree. I know that's something that they think a lot through, and there's obligations as far as before races, doing kind of different media events per race. So we'll see. But I'm sure that that's something that they put a lot of time into thinking through, because they do a very good job of it.
Yeah, I mean, they definitely do. And also a thing that your partners should like a lot. That you
Definitely.
because like the platform they built for their athletes, Gravel Earth, of course, also significantly leveled up their game last season. I feel like with the YouTube videos and so on that they put out, and they are also going in this direction, which is much needed. And still, like the level on which Lifetime operates, also as a result of being bankrolled by a publicly traded company, is. I mean, they have the resources and they implement this very well. And so, yeah, but I assume it will be exciting to be a part of this next year for you. Is there any specific thing that you are nervous about, looking forward to the most?
I think it's really just the newness of it all. I have a lot to figure out as far as logistics and managing the travel, things like that, being away from home. But at the same time, it's something that I'm looking forward to. Last year with Unbound, it was my first year finishing the race. The year before I had a mechanical and wasn't able to finish. And so going into Unbound last year, I felt really the same sort of, same way about the unknowns. There were so many unknowns. It was longer than I'd ever raced a bike. I had no idea what was going to happen. And I kind of felt oddly at peace with it being so unknown. It sort of takes a little bit of the pressure off. So I'm hopeful that Lifetime will end up feeling the same way. Although at the moment it feels a little bit like, yikes, like I'm the rookie and there are a lot of people that have done this series many years. But I've got some good advice from people and some good mentors.
And look who's going to be a rookie with you, like Carolina. They are also Lifetime rookies. So.
Rookie. That's true. They are Lifetime rookies, but I don't know if Unbound winners. But yeah.
No, of course they know Unbound, but I mean in the sense of like how the series works and all this. You have
definitely
people you can exchange with.
Absolutely.
And I guess that is helpful.
Very much so. Yeah. And I think, at least for me, I feel pretty clear about where my priorities are. And yeah, that makes it easier to just commit and jump in.
So before we wrap it up, I would like to take the occasion to talk a bit about the last season you had still, because last time we spoke was after the Hills, which of course you won. Still pretty epic win. And then you continued to have a super consistently strong season. How was the rest of the year for you? How happy, satisfied were you with how it went?
Yeah, it's interesting. I just recently spent some time reflecting because I think it's easy to forget about like the wins, even if they weren't big wins, the small wins. And I think as an athlete, you're constantly critiquing yourself about like, oh, like I just feel like I look back at last season and I'm like, oh God, I had such like a mediocre season. And then I talk to other people and they're like, what do you mean? So yeah, looking back, I think I improved in a lot of ways. And yes, there were results, but like you said, I think consistency was important. And for me, feeling good at the end of the season is always really nice and something that I've been able to do now the last 2 seasons. And I'm hopeful that will help me next season as well. But yeah, like, I mean, a top 10 at Unbound was super unexpected and made me excited to go back. The middle of the season, I mean, the Rift was a big race that, yeah, it didn't go quite to plan, had a random mechanical, but to come in on the podium was awesome. And yeah, wrap it up nicely with Rancho was really cool. So yeah, I think it's easy to look back as an athlete and think, oh, why didn't I do that? Or I wish that could have been better. And I do sort of have this weird feeling that like I'm still kind of in the shadows. Like I'm kind of there, but I'm not quite there. And yeah, I'm hopeful that next season we'll get to change that maybe.
We're currently, so when this drops, it will probably already be done or most likely. But as we record this, there is just the period of the All Gravel Awards where the fan votes just opened. And we have one award category, the most impressive performance. And in the first step, we had like this expert panel vote for and nominate the riders, and in other categories, races and so on. And in this most impressive performance category, Your the Hills performance did get nominated, and I think rightfully so, because it is definitely a race that got known internationally. I mean, I know Americans are aware of the race and the pictures they went around the gravel globe, so it was a good one to win. And I think going back to the Life Time Grand Prix and the admission process, I think the top 10 at Unbound was certainly important, but I would assume the Hills win also factored into this in your favor.
Yeah. I mean, that was a pretty epic race, and it made for some really good content. And yeah, I know that Lifetime heavily looks at, results in their races. So I'm sure Unbound was part of that. And then, maybe Rancho at the end of the season, and the Earth Series overall. But yeah, it was a pretty epic race. And it's kind of easy to forget because it was so early. But yeah, looking forward to it again this year.
Yeah, which is why I would think, you're on the map. Like at least the people in gravel who know, they know you're on the map, and it's going to be interesting for fans to see how it all goes next season, because we never, I would say we never had it that like this level of very, very strong racers, great racers even, is in a season competing for an overall title like we're going to get it this year on the women's side. And that's pretty exciting.
That will be exciting for sure.
Did you look at the men's side of the Lifetime Grand Prix as well?
I did. I'm less familiar with some of the names. But yeah, it sounds like it's going to be an exciting season for them. And I know that, it will also be a big season. I mean, you still have all the big names in there, and then it's interesting to see that there are more European contenders as well. So,
how many of the Europeans do you know? Because I did the exercise for a piece recently to go through all the new faces and write into them. And like on the women's side, I obviously knew many of the new faces, and on the men's side, it's a different animal. I just wonder if like some of the Swiss or Norwegian riders you happen to know and have some insights you can share.
I was going to say, because I feel I know a lot less the men's side, but I know there is a new Swiss rider. I think obviously there's Seaman as well. There's another South African rider. So I actually think it might be more international on the men's side than the women's. But I honestly can't say I have a ton of insights. I know who's a contender now, and I look forward to seeing Seaman in the racing next year. But I can't say I'm super familiar with everyone as far as strengths and performance goes to know.
Yeah, I mean, that was my main takeaway on the men's side for next year, that it's going to be really, really interesting just on a surprise level, because there is a South African mountain bike marathon champion in there who also did solid at like African UCI gravel races. Mm-hmm. But what does it mean? How is it going to stack up? And so, really a black box there, which I mean, like Cam also was probably not on anybody's
radar
list for, especially not for the overall, and neither was Simon maybe. And interesting times there.
It is exciting. And I think it's exciting because, we've just seen like Sophia and Keegan dominate the series for so long. I mean, Keegan seems like a great guy, but it's kind of fun to see someone else take the overall just because, it's been so long. When you see people that are so dominant for so long, it's nice to see things change up. And I don't doubt there's someone else out there who will totally change things up again as well. And who knows, maybe it's a wild card rider. So we'll see.
When do you go to Colombia?
January 17th.
All right. And until then, you're enjoying like off-season riding in Girona, I assume.
Hanging out in Girona. Yeah, there are moments where I think, gosh, it'd be nice. I know people are off in the Canary Islands or somewhere a little bit warmer. But then I think of everyone else in farther north in Europe and think, okay, it's just fine here. No complaints.
What's going to be your first race of the new season?
The first race will be Sandoval.
Okay, so you'll be back from Colombia by then.
Yep, I'll be back just before, and we'll see how that goes. For now, my expectations are not so well. I'm definitely lowering expectations for Sandoval, but we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, last year it kicked off the season with a bang.
Yeah, it always does. And I'm hopeful that we'll actually have some more Americans coming over from the US. That said, at the same time, I think adding to the competition in the middle of February is quite a lot.
Yeah, it feels like everybody's taking it very seriously and everybody wants to be already very good for it, even though it is so early.
Yeah, I think the last 2 years I felt very like it gives you a little confidence boost, right? I don't think if you don't do well at Sandoval, I don't think it has anything to do. It doesn't mean you can't have amazing results the rest of the season. But I think as an athlete, it's nice to have that just little bit of confidence going into the season. However, I do feel like this year for myself personally, I'm going to try to, yes, I'll be nice to be on form, but try to target races a little bit further down the line.
And a little bit more critical for the Life Time Grand Prix, potentially.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. Thanks a lot for talking us a bit through this, the early stage of your Life Time Grand Prix experience. I mean, it's something that we can only think about how could it go, but thanks for taking us a bit behind the scenes with you.
Thank you. Yeah, it was exciting to talk about, and I'm looking forward to sharing the journey as I figure it out, because it's going to be a lot of learning. Where
should people follow you to see that journey?
Yeah, probably my Instagram is the best place to follow along. Morgan_Aguirre. I'll try to keep people updated.
We'll make sure to put it in the show notes, definitely. So enjoy the remainder of this year, and then a good start with the Colombia training camp.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Now, if you like what we are doing here, please subscribe, like, follow us on the socials, do all the good stuff, the stuff that the algorithms like, the stuff that we like, and we really, truly appreciate it. So, and now I'm joined by HSOG, Holy Spirit of Gravel. How are you?
Howdy, y'all. Just kidding. That's not really how I talk.
I invited you to come back on the show. You've been here before because I wanted to recap a bit this season in gravel, and specifically with a bit of distance. I mean, I don't know when was the last race of this season, maybe sometime in October. We're recording this early December. So there were a few weeks. I remember at some point you said, look, I prefer to have a few weeks to decompress and think about this stuff. So do I. Makes sense to really revisit. Because I felt there was a lot going on this season in gravel. And maybe it makes time, the end of the year, approaching New Year, to take a step back, reflect a little bit on gravel, and specifically about what were like the key storylines, the most interesting things that happened this year in this neat little bubble we chose to live in gravel racing.
Oh no, I actually don't do it. I don't live in it. I'm just catfishing everyone. I'm not really the person that goes out and does any of this or anything. Yeah, no, absolutely not. Yeah, I sent you that thing about I was like, yeah, give me a couple weeks. And I'm pretty sure I sent that like 2 months ago. So
6 weeks, maybe.
It's been a busy fall.
So where did your intense period of reflection lead you to so far?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest storyline for me was my rise to niche micro celebrity. No, I'm kidding.
But fair enough. So, I mean, I think it is probably it's an interesting storyline because it could be emblematic for what is happening in gravel at large. Don't you think?
Yeah, maybe I'm taking some brands have budgets, and instead of giving them to people that are actually good at riding bikes, they might be giving some to me. Sorry about that, actual professional athletes. Yeah, I mean, gravel is, I don't know, simultaneously getting more serious, quote unquote. Like it's team talk is all the rage. We'll see how that ends up. And then the Lifetime Grand Prix is like merit based, which is that supposed to mean like no more influencers, no more Dylan Johnsons? I love Dylan Johnson. All respect to Dylan Johnson. He is really fast and really good bike rider. But yeah, I mean, it seemed like and then he didn't get in. And then people are like, well, this race is about more than results. But then I don't know, you can have a racing league that's completely merit based, and then also still have all the storytelling stuff that I wouldn't even say on the side. I would say it's still a huge part of the sport. You still do all the same races. It's just like the podium, and I guess the lifetime videos you don't get in, and the checks, which only go to the top 10. Yeah, I don't know. It's funny because when we were doing that gravel award thing, and one of my choices was so early in the season, and you were like, oh wow, I forgot about that. Or you didn't say you forgot. I'm not going to put those words in your mouth, but you were like, oh yeah, it was just so early. Do you remember what I'm talking about?
I think you're talking about the hills, the best most impressive performance, and
I said
Morgan Aguirre at the hills.
I said Morgan in the hills. Yeah, that was my pick.
And funnily enough, this may air in the same episode where I, earlier today, as we're recording, talked to Morgan Aguirre and mentioned to her that she's nominated in this award. So we're coming full circle here.
Yeah, shout out Morgan. She's cool.
Let me tell you what the first storyline that I came up with is. And I gave it a title, Women World Beaters. Because something that if I look back on this season comes to my mind is at certain stages of the season, there were different women who literally looked unbeatable for a certain stretch of this period. And as an honorable mention, I think it makes sense to drop in Annika Langwart real brief, because the moment she looked like a world beater was super, super short. It was Santa Val, the first race over here in the European scene.
She swept it, right?
She swept it. Like it was a two-stage, mini-stage race. And like on day one, she beat Rosa Klöser, and the second one, I forgot, but two much younger, very strong riders she beat in the sprint, and that was just an 80-kilometer stage. And then the second day, the long one, she she put, I believe, 12 minutes into second placed Axel Dubois-Prévost. So at this moment, really, she looked like a world beater. But it turned out
you had people like me Googling her because I'd never heard of her before.
I was just tipped off to her because I had talked to Maya Noriega on a season preview for the Gravel Earth series before, and she had tipped me off. So I had done a little bit of homework before, but I was not super familiar with her. But turns out she's a legend, and then she started destroying everybody from the European scene at Santaval, and that looked quite scary. And then if we go in order, chronological order. So first we have the Carolina Migon stretch where she wins the Trucker 360. That was on May 2nd. I looked up the dates actually. Went then to her US block, first won Gravel Low Course, then Unbound, and then Lost and Found, which was on June 14. So that was a very solid 6-week stretch, you could say, winning the 2 biggest races of the year. And then we transitioned into the Rosa Klöser win streak, which started at the Rift, July 19th. She went on to win Core 4, Lauf Gravel Worlds, German National Championships. She didn't technically win the European Championship, even so she should have. Do you have this expression? We call it in German, we have something that would translate to the winner of the hearts. What would be the good English expression for this?
Like the people's champ, kind of?
Yeah, the people's champ. She's definitely European people's champ.
I mean, I think even just, to me, that's a spiritual Rosa win to me. Like, it's like that, disrespect to whoever won, but I mean, that's that's racing. Like like racing is just part of like not getting or especially in gravel, like not getting a flat and dealing with it. That's part of it. I mean, whoever who got second or first and second, I mean, because Rosa got third, right? Or did she get second?
Third. No,
third. Right? Yeah, there was 2 women that passed her right there at the end. Yeah, I mean, they had to be in a position to be close enough to take advantage. So like props to them. But anyway, that's a spiritual Rosa win for me.
And then, of course, her win streak wasn't over yet, because then came Rancho on September 28th. And I think that is more or less where it ended. But just for good measure, on November 9th, she also won a Portuguese UCI gravel race, even though that technically is already part of the 26 gravel season and counts toward qualification for next year. So
I was wondering about that race. I was wondering about those races that were happening. Then it was like one in Thailand, I think.
Yeah, which Kongstad was like second or third.
Yeah,
or so.
I know. I was talking to Tobias during that one because it looked insane, the stuff they were posting from that one. There's like, if any listeners want to just Google, I didn't even know what it was called. After like somewhat recently, I just on YouTube, I just saw Tobias's clips from it. And then at some point, maybe even a few days ago, I was on YouTube and I just typed in Thailand gravel race. And there's like Southeast Asian locals were posting about it, and we're posting a bunch of clips. So like I suggest looking it up because it looks insane. And then
I messaged they had Tobias, super deep water crossings, river crossings.
Yeah, I messaged Tobias and I was like, just the other day actually, because he posted some more stuff about it, and I was like, I don't think you can call yourself a true gravel racer unless you have those like traumatic race. Like everyone in their memory or in the Palmares, whatever, has to have like a race that was just absolutely disastrous. I don't mean like freak mechanical disastrous. I mean like the conditions are just completely insane. Like,
does the hills qualify?
Probably, yeah. I didn't look like what that Thailand, in my mind, it kind of, aesthetically similar maybe. But for me, it would be like Valley of Tears, where I was like, getting like frostbite, hypothermia, on the verge. And I've been a few local races that have been like in storms. Anyway, yeah. So look up that race. I don't know what it's called. Just type in Thailand gravel race. But it was UCI and it is for next year. Yeah.
It's same like this Portuguese race, Rosa capped off her season, or maybe already started her new season. If we go by the UCI rule book,
she can come race. She can come race in Texas. You can keep going. All our races are starting up again because it's too hot to do them in the summer. So, yeah.
But we're not even done with the world-beating women yet,
and then
because there was a certain
Can I guess
individual...
who is it Sophia? The next one?
Sophia.
Yeah.
And so what I put down here is the Bentonville double, or Bentonville sweep, as I heard somebody refer to it. That's
doesn't have quite the ring as the Corn Cup. The Corn Cup has a better ring to it, just gonna say. Which is
the Corn Cup, just part of the Rosa win streak, surrounded by other monument wins, or at least one other.
I'm surprised you're not including
really Sophia.
No, I was just gonna say I'm surprised you're not including the the mountain bikers dominating gravel is just like a collective. That would be Haley Batten at Sea Otter and Kate Courtney at Leadville, which is extreme gravel for these purposes. For these purposes, maybe. Well, it was in your gravel awards.
It was. I fully adapted and start to promote the extreme gravel lingo, because I think it makes a lot of sense to describe specifically Leadville and Schwarm again. By the way, I now, because I had to write it so often, I can write it correctly off the top of my head.
Yeah, me too.
I am a bit proud about, to be honest.
No, same. Yeah. I'm there also. Too much. You're in too deep. You're in too deep when
you can spell Schwarm again. Yeah. But Sophia, on the one hand side, you could look at this Bentonville stretch that also sealed the deal with the Life Time Grand Prix. But really, when I was writing something about the awards, I for a moment had considered just putting in like a screenshot from her PCS with all the wins, because it was just so impressive. Like from the early season, she wins like 2 BWR races. There, she sweeps various stage races, including the gravel grinder. I talked a lot about this on an awards-based show. But that's going back to the women world beaters. To me, that was very cool to have like these names all lined up. And for certain stretches of the year, you thought, who can ever beat her? And then, of course, next year, all of them are going to be in the Life Time Grand Prix going head-to-head, which must be a dream scenario for everybody who is into gravel racing.
Oh, absolutely. When I saw that, because I didn't know, I hadn't asked anyone what they were. I was a little like offline in that period of time with like because I had come back from Bentonville and I was like working on some video stuff and just like day job stuff. And then, so I wasn't really, I was like in a bit of a touching grass mode. And I wasn't really keeping up with like people's application process or like asking them or anything like that. So I didn't know that all the Euros were going to apply, and like those in particular, like I didn't know. So when I saw that list come out, I was like, whoa. Oh, and also I think the other thing is that Lifetime didn't tell them before, like they found out from Lifetime's post. Mm-hmm. A couple of people, actually some big names, found out from my story. They told me that.
Okay.
From my story where I just screen capped the list and it was just like, oh, we eaten well or whatever I put. But yeah, that blew my mind. As someone that's like, for me, that I'm like so hyped on the women, like not even within the sphere of like, I don't think of it as like the Lifetime Grand Prix or Gravel Their Series or whatever, just like the kind of the individual performances and like the storylines, I guess, like the way you're putting it. And then now I'm starting to know them, but I was just like, I was so hyped for that, because that's how, I mean, I'm not going to say that's how it should be. It's gravel. None of this is real. It's all made up. There's only like 12 of us that really care, but it is just, it's going to be cool. Super cool to see. And I joke a lot about Sophia versus Rosa, but I mean, it's bigger than that. Like Cara's in it, Sarah Sturm's back. Lauren Stevens, I think, kind of gets a little overlooked sometimes. She's really, really good.
She's a top level bike racer. Yeah.
Yeah. And like, and Cecily Decker, who got second, and it was going down to the wire there.
She's still there next season.
Yeah, exactly. And so like, I'm so hyped on that, and I'm so glad. And that's when, I guess, when the dialogue that some people bring to the table, when it's like, gravel's not just about competition, and it's not, we should cater to the storylines and the soulfulness of the sport. It's like, okay, that's, we have other stuff for that. You can't not be excited that there's the best in the world at this specifically. Like, I guess if Demi Vollering or like Kasia comes to a race, okay, I get it. But like in the culture, the best in the world who do this like day in and day out, I guess like G's missing.
I wanted to ask who's missing, and I also think it's G, and then maybe Danny Shrewsbury.
Right, yeah.
But that's pretty much about it, no? From like the top elite level. I mean, there are some other very strong riders over in Europe, but also, and maybe you can explain what this distinction means to you, and then I can chime in what it means for you, but they are not as in the culture as the others we just mentioned. And it's something you allude to also regularly, the culture. How would you define this and describe it to somebody from the outside, and why does it matter?
I mean, it sounds kind of, I think it's just my way of saying that the people that see gravel as their day job, I guess. And I mean, when I talked to Rosa, I even asked her, like, if you had the chance to do just road with Canyon SRAM, would you just drop gravel? Like, I wouldn't like, I don't think anyone could be like upset about that or anything because like World Tour is still the top level. It's harder to define because there is a step above this field. And I say that with no disrespect to anyone. I say that full acknowledgement that I'm a slow person, but like there is a higher level of skill and competition or whatever. So then like, how do you find the best of the second level, or not second of like a different level? So it's the best competition. Yeah. Within the people that treat this as their main competition, I guess is how I would put it. And also it's even like, it's kind of, it's not super concrete, because it's like, what do I mean when I say I was watching the UCI gravel world championships and I was rooting for quote unquote our people?
Yeah.
Like,
but I was
it's something that
so
it's like,
real.
How do you define that? But also, exactly what I mean when I say that.
Exactly, I do. And I think, I mean, the way I would describe it is like, in my life, I've been part of and closely followed even more subcultures and scenes, and saw them emerge and go down. May that be music. I mean, here I'm in Germany, we have a very big rap and hip hop scene, and I was a part of this, and I saw the emergence and the fall down. And in sports, I mean, from skating when I was young and so on, you see how stuff emerges, some stuff goes, and some stuff stays there because it catches on. There is something to a certain thing that attracts people, and that is cool. And it clearly happened to gravel. I mean, it's something that grew grassroots from the bottom up. And so on a performance level, all the stuff that you say is clearly true. I mean, the best athletes are in World Tour. I also do believe, and it's not a belief, it's a fact, that at the top end of gravel, people can also be in World Tour, and they couldn't be in World Tour on a Tadej Pogacar, Mathieu van der Poel world beater level, but they could be there as a very good domestique, like Keegan had the contract. Mats Würz Schmidt just came off the World Tour last year, and is on a level right now, as he himself said, that is higher than he ever was at World Tour, because he has more time to train, which he wouldn't have on the road because he has to do so many races and he cannot train that consistently and that focused. So long story short, at the top end of gravel, the level is pretty high. It's not the highest level you would find on the road, but then also you see the people that we adopt, and that is something even like you mentioned the awards, and just before we recorded, we looked at some comments and some people dropped some names from European races, why they are not there and so on. And I think partially it may also have to do with who is recognized within the scene, because yes, there is such a thing as the gravel community, the gravel scene, and people who want to be a part of it as an athlete or a fan, as an observer. They also need to do certain things to be recognized.
I mean, the whole influencer part of it is like always going to be in gravel. Like there's just no getting away from it. So when people say stuff
sports
like
these days, I don't think that is like people always say it like, oh, but that is not sports and that's a negative thing. And I think it's the other way around. In fact, I don't think it's like, oh, gravel is all these influencers. I think in sports, you also, if you want to be successful in sports, especially like a sports entertaining product, then you need people who are interested in you. And yes, the performance is a very important aspect, but also the biggest stars in football, in the NBA, US sports, they are also personalities.
Well,
and that's just part of it.
And I'll give gravel this, because I follow all those sports and I have teams and athletes I like and all that, and their social media presence, yeah, they have more followers, but they're really extremely uninteresting people at it. And that's not a slight on anyone's character or anything, but they're not, I mean, they have millions of followers and their Instagram accounts are run by PR marketing people.
Yeah.
You know, you
exactly.
can't DM them and talk to them, or you're not going to meet them at a packet pickup for anything. If that's something you're into, if you want to meet them or whatever.
I think except KD, if I remember, Kevin Durant, who for everybody who's not into basketball had like burner accounts too.
Let me quote Lil B, Bass God rapper. He released a song called FKD, F Kevin Durant. That's how I feel about Kevin Durant. But so that's why when people were talking about like, but gravel is supposed to be about storylines and journeys and the whole more abstract influencer side of it. But it's like you still have that. It's still a part of the sport because we do have the culture. But yeah, just finding the best within the culture. I'm good with that compromise, if you want to call it that way.
And I mean, without going to like internet strategy, whatever, but if you think about these other sports, why the athletes there are usually more boring is because these are sports that came to be in the mass media age. That is when they became popular, and the structures that are now manifested within the sports are like in the teams you have PR people, the people are media trained.
They're completely media trained. Yeah,
exactly.
Completely media trained.
Our little sport here came to be in the digital age and grassroots. So to find an audience, it couldn't go to TV or to a newspaper and say, please write about me. It had to find its own audience, and that is how it works nowadays. Like people who have something interesting to tell need to find their own audience, which is what the Gravel Pros did. And the very first people who came there who were performance-minded but also good storytellers are also the people who have the biggest names in the sport nowadays. And even though maybe they no longer are among the highest of high performers.
Yeah, find these people at a race. Like you start talking to them, you'll find out very quickly they're not media trained.
Yeah,
which is good. Which is
differently media trained, not like old school PR media trained. Don't give a story to the reporters, but they know very well how to play the game. And then also on the other hand, like if you say, yeah, all these are now, all the athletes need to be podcasters, yada yada, yeah, but that's happening in the NBA as well. For instance, like how many players, top level players, have their own podcasts these days? Draymond Green.
they're like bonk bros. They'll have like 17 of them all talking at once. NBA podcasts. Yeah, it's funny because I had a conversation on my podcast with. I don't think it was recorded, but with one of the pros I was talking to, and we were talking about like, yeah, there's technically like, and this was fully like they were like completely admitting this, but it's like, yeah, there's like better riders in World Tour or whatever than you, but I don't know who they are. I don't know who they are. Like, I have no idea. And they're like a domestique on a World Tour team or whatever. You're maybe very close to their skill level, or like on a good day can hit it or whatever. And they were like, yeah. I was like, I have no idea who they are though. And I probably never will know who they are. Maybe like I'll recognize a name on like a Pro Cycling Stats or something, but I don't follow them on Instagram. I don't know whatever is going on with them, their recent results. And they're like, yeah. So
to bring it back and to finalize the women world beaters, which of the ones was your favorite one? Which will you remember the most fondly? Which one will you tell your kids or nephews or whatever about 20 years from now?
I mean, I was the one that felt the most insane, I feel, was like Caro's run, because it's just like whoa, you know, like maybe the level at some of them wasn't quite like the Unbound level, you know, like, but it was, that one just felt pretty unreal at the time. Like that was literally like, people were, not just me, but other people were like, generational run was like the phrase people were using. And then Rosa's was also crazy because she was riding against the same people at every single one, just about. So that one on in a different way was also like, whoa, like, I mean, the Rift, and then a couple weeks later, Iowa, and I was there for that one and saw that one. I mean, literally like that one in Gravel Worlds, her and G. I mean, it looked like, find the difference in this picture. Well, Rosa had aero bars in one of them, but that was really the only difference. Those two would be, for me. I mean, and then German, if she had won the European one, which didn't really have the same, I guess, kind of, I felt like I had to like search for like how to watch that one. And it looked like it was being like, it like a sports studio from like, I don't know, like the 80s or something. Like that was like a funny broadcast. If that like live stream is still online, it was just extremely Italian, which if you watch it, you'll see what I mean. And it looked like it was being broadcast in the studio.
Completely Italian. I tested how well these like real-time live generated YouTube captions plus real-time translations work, and they worked reasonably well. So it was the only way how I could follow. Yeah, because of course, how do you produce, in which language do you produce the live stream for European Championships? Of course in Italian,
Catalan.
because
Only
why would
Catalan.
Yeah, also
do it in Catalan.
Yeah, that would be the real way to do it. But no, they did it in Italian, and my Italian is essentially non-existent. So yeah, that was how I watched it, and it was like not the greatest broadcast, but then seeing what unfolded, they were so happy that this happened, because something happened. Otherwise, nothing would have happened. We would have seen like Rosa solo to the win and Mats solo to the win.
Yeah, no, that one was funny. And then I briefly, when I tuned in on the UCI Gravel Worlds live stream, of course, for me, these are all at like 3 a.m. that these are being broadcast. So like when I briefly tuned in on that, there was that breakaway group, which I think were all World Tour women, and then there was like the chase group, and you saw like Rosa crest the hill first, and I was like, yeah. And then it was hard to pick G out of the crowd because I know she was up there too, but I'm used to like one really tall Dutch woman. And then there was like 50, there were like half the field was like really tall G's all in orange. So I was like, I can't tell her apart in this one. So
Yeah.
but she was there too. But yeah, no. So those two stick out to me, kind of in different ways. But yeah, those two definitely.
I mean, what I have to say about Rosa's one. So when I debated myself in the piece about my MVP vote and ballot for the awards, which was a super tough one just because of these three that I mentioned here as well, I ended up giving my vote to Sophia just by a hair over Rosa. And the way how I phrased it is that I said, look, it pains me, but maybe the difference between the two is a European Championship between these two seasons, which, I mean, who cares anyways who I vote for, but that is like this European Championship in the end could have made a difference on my ballot about, let's be real, who cares, but still.
Yeah. Am I supposed to say who I voted for?
You can if you want. You're not supposed to.
Oh, okay. I'm not supposed to. Yeah, no. Well, I mean, my Rosa vote then I guess cancels out your Sophia vote. So there you go.
So let's talk about the second storyline then that I have on here, because it's also one that you, at least on the edge of it, you played a role as well here. Mm-hmm. I called it the year we finally got to watch gravel racing. And like in 2024, we of course had like the first, or not even the first, they were in 23, there were the very first proper homemade gravel live streams, not counting the stuff with Unbound on What Flow bikes years ago. But then this year it really exploded, live streams did, and we had 9 live streams plus the UCI World Champs on TV, even live streamed in some countries. And yeah, we just got to see many of these races that were more or less mythical races before, or maybe in the case of some of the Lifetime races, not mythical, but we just knew it from grainy Instagram live video stuff that was there occasionally and then sometimes not. But we did get to see races like Unbound, races like Leadville, and we got to see more of the riders. Like suddenly we could pick them out in riding in the bunch, see them, learn a bit more about how they move, how they behave, what they do. If the camera was on them.
You and I know who they are. Some of the people that are commentating these races don't even know who they are. Yeah, so some of the races, even though they're completely live streamed, still do feel like you're watching a mystery or something. So, but yeah, I mean.
That's true.
Hard to put on.
That's very true.
So.
Like we could do a ranking of the different live stream announcers and what their strengths and weaknesses are. Like some are too triathlon coded and talk about athletes instead of riders all the time, and then others just don't know the names and don't know even the most clearly identifiable jerseys out there.
Well, you got to start somewhere, so
yeah.
I guess we'll look on the bright side. You got to start somewhere. It can only go up from here.
Yeah, exactly, and I think that is also...
At least it wasn't all in Italian. Even though
imagine maybe
it took place in Italy. It's going to be in Italian. That's fine. The AI translations worked apparently.
They did a decent job, but like, to me, it was a bit like, gravel just started to dip its toes in the waters of sports entertainment. Just, a tiny bit feel. Does it feel good? Is it maybe too cold? And then from what I'm hearing, likely next season it's going to get its feet wet, actually. On the podcast we just released with Erwin Verfecken, the manager of the UCI Gravel World Series, he told us that he tries to finalize a deal to get some of the races in the series on TV for next season. So then eventually, if that would come to be, we would eventually get to see these UCI races that so far I think you were not even sure existed for real. And then we could find out, because frankly, even I am not so sure. So what is your takeaway? Did it entertain you, this year of gravel becoming an entertainment sport?
I mean, I can't say that a huge part of it for me wasn't like being pretty activated in the group chats on YouTube. It was like a huge part of like what is memorable to me about watching these live streams. No, I mean, we're better off for them existing. Absolutely. And it's really cool. It's a hard sport to process visually. 200 miles, I guess maximum 200 miles. There's not a whole lot to see. A lot of the stories come out after the fact of stuff that's impossible to catch. It happens in a moment, and it's like, do you stay watching someone fix a flat for 12 minutes, or do you follow the group of all the hitters? Like, I don't know.
Split screen.
Yeah, split screen. Do you have two motos? Do you have two cameras? Are we there yet? Are we that advanced? I don't know. Like, definitely on the right track. Yeah, I mean, I'm happy. Like, it could be better. They're free. Like, I didn't pay for anything. That the famous Lost Unbound one, I remember that was on Flow Bikes that I never saw because it was behind a paywall. And so we get to see gravel. I think it's good for the athletes. Like, they get to more exposure for them. People get to know who they are, even if the announcers don't even necessarily know who they are. Okay, well, I'm filming it. Like, I made memes of it because I filmed my tablet screen with my phone.
Yeah.
Because that's just the easiest way to do it. And then I ran it on CapCut and then put text over it and was able to make a joke about it. Whatever it was. And so those opportunities to consume stuff outside of it takes pressures off the riders too. That they shouldn't have to be the only people or either posting their own stuff that professional photographers took or posting brand stuff. Like, there should be a universal, neutral production media going on. I think, I guess, and a lot of people, the group chats get really, really negative because they'll focus on all the faults of which that they exist. But I mean, yeah, I'm happy, definitely, as someone that's like a great consumer of all this stuff, and all this was very useful for me in my material, quote unquote. So yeah, I'm glad. And like, I'm glad it is, I guess, not just being taken for granted. Like, this is considered a storyline because it's a good thing. And like, I had the best time ever doing what I did, which wasn't live stream coverage, but the Instagram uploading stuff was a lot of fun. And I know who everyone is. So I was able to use that knowledge finally for something other than just like deep internet humor brain rot. I was grateful for that opportunity. So yeah, and they're all still up if you want to go look at the Core 4 Instagram. They still have it up in like the saved stories section, which is, super fun. I think taking an approach that isn't, and I've said this on my podcast, I've said this before in other places, but I think completely transporting like what triathlons are, or like just world tour road cycling, and transporting that model onto gravel and thinking it'll completely work, I think it's not going to work. That's kind of the reasons why people were finding faults in these live feeds. Like, I think the smaller moments matter, like someone getting a flat, like someone crashing out, seeing what happens with that, hanging out more in the feed zones, even though they happen so quick, but getting like the vibes. I mean, it was like the Leadville feed was like Keegan just riding a load up a mountain, down a mountain. Like, cool. Like, yeah, I'm so, but there was no other sort of contextual information with that. And one of the more interesting parts of that race was when John Gaston got crashed out in the feed zone. And that, of course, came out on like social media later. It was like accidentally captured.
Like, he was crashed out by a camera crew. I think a race camera crew even.
He was crashed out by the Life Time crew.
Yeah.
So the irony there, but but I don't want to have this come off as like just all the things that were wrong. Yeah, it's super cool. It's funny too, because just like on a personal note, like it's funny because like I was at Unbound riding the 100, right? And when I told my mom, she's like, is there going to be a live stream? Is there going to be a live stream? My parents were there. I said, yeah. And I sent her the link like before it went live, like they had the link out. And my mom sent it to the family group chat. And they all watched it, even though I'm not in it. Like like this isn't about me, this live stream. This is about the pro. You do see me in a brief second when Cam Jones and Simone passed me, but it's like, it is funny that you have like, that it's consumable in that way. And then I kid you not, my uncle, who doesn't know anything about this, when we were back in town and we all went out for dinner, he tells me, what was Little Egypt like? Because they harped on about Little Egypt so much. And I was like, well, I didn't ride it. I didn't do the 200s, so I didn't ride Little Egypt. But he knew what Little Egypt was because there was a live stream and because maybe my mom made people think that I was going to be in it or something. But yeah, people are watching it. It's great context for family members if they need to see it, know what you're doing, even if you're not in it.
I mean, you already said a few things to the extent of what should people who produce these live streams think about. And you mentioned the little moments matter, what is happening in the feed zone matters. And that is a point where maybe we can even go a bit deeper. Just if you think about a gravel live stream that you would really want to watch, what would you want to get from it?
I really liked the Traca live stream and then the Rancho one, because I think Maya Noriega is like the best I've seen that does it. And then
as an announcer, definitely. I mean, she knows her stuff. She knows all these riders from the European scene. She's meticulously prepared.
She's not just saying what happens on the screen. She's talking about storylines that have happened prior, relationships between people, teams they're on. There is so much to get out of this sport because there is so much that's posted on social media.
Yeah.
And if you're someone that knows what that is, then you can use your skills to speak it into importance for everyone that's watching. And then she was having like pros on, like people that were injured and stuff were coming on, like at Traca, like
I think
Piotr Havoc was on, and then Andy Leidick was on the one Rancho because he was injured. So yeah, I think she's really good. I'd love to see Amanda on it more. Like I'd love to see her utilized in the booth, because like at Gravel Worlds they had her kind of out on the roads. Mm-hmm. Being like a correspondent, I guess is how you would put it. And they kind of reached out to her a couple times, but like, I think she's someone that like should be in a booth doing like a Maya Noriega type thing.
Yeah, I think that is a good call. Even though what I think is this role, so I sometimes called it a sideline reporter, which is also not the exact equivalent because like in other sports, so we don't have a sideline. And also the sideline reporter usually is there on the sideline interviewing, I don't know, a coach in a break or whatever. And I think it would almost need its own term, and it should be a default in gravel live streams to have these people on the ground, like standing in the feed zone and being close to what is happening on the
feed
field.
zones, mud sections,
exactly.
Little Egypts, the little Egypts of all these courses, like important climbs, like something that like I want to see more of are time gaps. And it's another one of those things that like logistically, like I don't know how you do that. I'm not on a production team, you know. I think you could go, I guess, like Gravel Burn didn't have any live coverage at all and put it all into these videos that people really liked. But yeah, so I think there's a few things to make it better. I'm sure all these production people or the people paying for the production companies, it's like money. But I think you can cover up the thing about gravel is like, oh, these are so long and boring, and it's just people riding together for a long time until some freak mechanical happens, and then again, just people riding together for a long time. But you have people on there that are knowledgeable and know what they're talking about and can bring context and bring stories and bring, the characters of these riders in. And then at that point, it's almost maybe like a podcast, but something to watch while you're on the trainer. So that's what all of this exists for anyway.
And I think, like in that sense, it's not so different from a long road race. Also, and then people say maybe the action there is different. But I mean, I watch a lot of road racing. I watch gravel races, and I know just from the landscape that I get to watch while some guys pedal for most of the hours is nicer on gravel. Even if it is in Emporia, Kansas, it's better than most roads that I get to look at. That's probably personal preference.
I don't know that you have to cape that hard for the sport. Yeah, maybe. I watch some road too, like the big stuff that goes on. There's some race in France that's pretty big. No, I mean I watch a lot of road till eventually, like after the Vuelta, I start losing steam and losing interest. That's happened every year for the last like 5 years. But yeah, no, I love it. So yeah, keep going, keep finding the funding. If you have to play Pas Normal ads every 3 minutes, then you have to play Pas Normal ads. Whenever you can have the injured riders and give them something to do by having them on the feed. Like I was talking to Paige Onweller about, they had her on the Big Sugar feed. And she was telling, because that race was shortened, of course, they would have had her on longer, and they had planned to have her on longer. And then she told me that they had to play the same amount of ads that they would have played for the long feed. So that's why there were so many ads, and people were complaining that there were so many ads. She's like, that's why. A lot of ads.
But
that makes sense. But yeah,
I mean, okay, I'm happy to take the ads if I get to see the race. There is a trade-off, as always in life, that I'm willing to make. I think, to me, the way I put it is tone and voice is so important, and to have people on the mic who take the sport seriously and who also just really like it, who are passionate about it. And that is why, much to your point, I think whenever Maya is commentating for the Classmark live streams, that works super well. When Amanda is there, or just the stuff you did at Core 4. I mean, I ended up voting in like the best race coverage category for this specifically, and even over the stuff that Gravel Burn did, which production value-wise, I mean, top-notch and really cool. And they were even good in the tone. I had the impression that the people commentating on these 26-minute recap videos, always listened to the daily Payson podcast from the day before, and took some of the trivia from there into the broadcast. But even if they did it, it worked out very well because it felt like they were in the know and knowing the scene. And maybe the guys, I didn't know the guys commentating there, so I can't speak about it. Maybe they are really deep in it anyways. But that worked. And this, like, take it seriously, be passionate about it, get people on the mic who check those boxes, and you are on your way to a good product, which is also why I mean for the live stream category, because I had to judge it, I really went back and I looked at all of the live streams. I mean, not in its entirety, but I just skimmed through them, listened a bit to remind myself who was commentating, and I listened to a few more minutes than I probably should have to Payson on the Unbound stream again, just because it was good. It was really well done. Thanks to his presence.
So I didn't hear it.
Yeah.
And I did go back the days after and kind of have some of it on in the background, but yeah, I for me the gravel burn recaps were a little sterile for me, I guess is the best way I can put it. They were almost like too well done.
They were done for TV because it was on TV in 40-something countries, I believe. They told me, because I asked them, I sent them a message because I wanted to know
hilarious.
why is it. So the story here is like, I was texting.
Why is it 26 minutes? Yeah. Okay, I mean, that makes sense.
I had asked them at some point about like, how will it be covered? And at that time, they told me we will have daily 26-minute recap videos. And I didn't think about it much. And I thought maybe a typo and they meant 25-minute recap videos or whatever. But then after a few days, I realized every day, it's exactly 26 minutes to the second. And I asked them, why do you do it this way? Why is it always exactly? And then they answered and they said, yeah, it's for TV. And I said, yeah, okay, then it makes sense because they're 26 plus 4 minutes ads. And then you have it. And then you go to the second, which you wouldn't do for a YouTube format, which is also then I understood why they had like the beginning segment where they recount the day prior. Mm-hmm. Which on YouTube, of course, you just watch one video. Why do I, in the next second, need to watch this again? But it's for TV. So there it makes a bit more sense. And that it's why it's so structured. Was
it on TV in the US? What channel was it on?
I don't think it was there on the US, but I don't know. But it was
absolutely not on TV here. Yeah, that's cool.
I mean, maybe, how many stations do you have? Like 1,000 TV channels or so? Maybe on a weird channel.
Yeah, on America First. Just kidding. That's a deep cut joke. Only freaks will understand that one. I mean, geez, is it ever going to end up on TV? I mean, if you go to like ESPN 3 at 4 a.m, they have darts or bowling on. So maybe one day.
Yeah.
One day, I mean, we can hope for like the downstream ESPN Sunday at 3 a.m. feed. So we'll see.
Yeah. For the time being, I just wrote about it today because I recapped a bit what we talked about with the Erwin Vervecken. I don't think it needs to be on TV right now. I think it is very good on the internet.
Absolutely not. Yeah. It's free. What more could you ask for? You can have fun in the group chat, So
if I asked you what was your people story of the year, would something come to mind?
My people story?
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Yeah, like a storyline about the people in gravel, a personality-driven story. Because I can for sure tell you mine.
Okay, tell me yours.
So I called it Simon and Cam, 2 stars ascent at Unbound.
Yeah, that'll be your next blog post, I'm sure. Or it probably already was, right? That was one of them.
I mean, in the end, it turned out that they were the perfect breakaway at Unbound, the most important gravel race in the world of the season, because that's the stage where everybody finally got to know them for sure. And they never went away afterwards. I think in this season, they really developed into like two of the most beloved figures in gravel racing. Is that fair to say? And if you remember back, like when at Unbound or after Unbound, all these stories came out about like how Simon, being this road veteran breakaway specialist, coached Cam through the breakaway and told him, yeah, it's the way we need to do it. Keep on pushing. We need to do it. We're not too early. And turns out one of them would win the Life Time Grand Prix. One of them would become second there, second at Gravelburn, and that is when their stars ascended.
Yeah.
It's poetic, no?
I can see that. Yeah. They got, isn't there like their fist bump or whatever on?
Yeah.
For me, what is it? Dylan Johnson gets hit by truck. DNS Unbound. Now, for me up there is sort of late summer would be the mud. The mud, I feel, was like a sort of ongoing storyline. Maybe just 2 races, but still, it felt like that occupied a great space in my head. I don't know. I think this year for me is really when just like the competition in the women's field felt unique to itself from the men's. It felt a little tighter. It felt a little more heated. I don't mean emotionally, just like within within like the actual structures of the race. And like people on my account, I started talking about it a lot more, like almost entirely when it came to the races. And it wasn't because I specifically was coming out and being like, I'm going to promote women's cycling and I'm about women's sports and blah, blah, blah. It was just because it was the one that was just way more engaging to me. And I think that resonated with a lot of people because, to be honest, like my audience is almost entirely male. It is like on what these platforms, whether it's like the podcast or Instagram, whatever, it's like we're getting into the like 80 to 90% male to like 20 to 10% female. So I know who my audience is, and like I'm not, I'm not a commercial operation anyway, so it's not like that matters that I need to cater to an audience, but it's And the men and stuff were super activated on the women's field too. It definitely it felt a little more alive, I think, for a lot of people. And these were names that had been around for a couple years and maybe not like super established, but you knew who they were. It wasn't in the men's. There was like new names popping up at every single race that were winning. It was just a little easier to follow. And like, visually,
you don't need to convince me. When I had JP on the other day, I said, look, I feel like this year, over the entirety of the season, the women racing was the more interesting side of the two.
And I kind of compare it with like in the US, like there's a huge push on the WNBA, which is a good thing. I'm not against that. Like I like basketball. I watch some WNBA, but there is a skill level gap, however you want to call it. There's probably more elegant ways to say it, but it doesn't look the same really at all. And there's reasons beyond just skill being the reason, but you have like the stars of the league, and then you kind of have everyone else is the feeling. And these women's fields are small, and there's not a whole lot, and that's also just like access and all that is the reason for that as well. But it just felt a lot tighter. in the women's field, and I'm not watching. You don't watch the women and you're like, they're not good at what they do.
No.
They're good bike handlers. They're good bike racers. They're good strategists. They know what they're doing. They have a different body type, than men.
Especially if you are like a gravel dad and not like if you're a 19 to 30-year-old age grouper and you're super fast, then maybe you should be riding with the pros anyways. But if you're like me, middle-aged gravel dad, and you have the pro women come by you in a race, then you know that they are freaking fast. And of course, they are not as fast as the men because physiology.
Yeah.
But yeah, they are fast. They are very good, and the racing can be super exciting. And like over the course of the season, I think it was at the end, like from a Lifetime Grand Prix perspective, for instance, we did get a cool finish, and maybe the cooler finish on the men's side that was more exciting because at Big Sugar in the last race, we had like 4 guys who could still win it, whereas Sophia had already three-peated by that time. So,
but it was going back and forth between her and Cecily, like going into
over the course of the season. Yeah, and then you had all these stretches that we talked to in the beginning. So that for me, it was to me, I think, but for the entirety of the season, the more entertaining part. And then in the finale of the season, maybe the men had a little advantage.
Yeah, I mean, I get a lot of normies in my DMs all the time, and I read almost all of them when I see them. And so this isn't. I'm not trying to promote myself, or this isn't about me, but I did get people telling me, and it made me happy, and they were just like, oh, I started following, or like, I'm glad you talked about so-and-so because you put them on. Like, people were always in my DMs being like, dude, Cecily's cool. Or like, or like I was hanging out a lot with LDC, Lauren DiCrescenzo at Big Sugar, and people are like, oh, I'm glad, like, yeah, this is like, I'm rooting for her. She's cool. Or, people told me at Core 4 that they were going up to Rosa and G, like guys, just to be fanboys or something. And people were like, sent me a picture they got with G or something. And like, I'm like, that's cool. That's super cool. And I'm glad in my way to be a part of promoting that, because, as gravel promotes itself to be equitable, when you have brands involved, when you take, the prize purses are the same, great, but there's everything else that is not equitable in terms of support and, brand support, like youth support, whatever it is. And so, I mean, the women are, in my mind, definitely earning all of that with the show they're putting on, if that's how you want to put it in this sport. Yeah, it's definitely, in my mind, the more interesting one, I would say. So that would be my overall storyline, is like the rise of this sort of, I don't know, the production of like the women's field, and how like it's only compounding because Lifetime Grand Prix next year they're all facing each other, which is like, what more could you want, really? So, I mean, not that Lifetime Grand Prix is the end all be all. Like, people will be at Mid-South, and people will be at Gravel Worlds and at the Rift and Traca and all that. But it is going to. Yeah.
I was even surprised when I looked into the viewership by how much Lifetime Grand Prix beat the rest of the field, like including Traca. It was just...
Yeah, just like name recognition. I like the Traca stream more, but it was... Or like the Gravel World stream. I'm not sure where that ranked, but Lifetime has...
53, 55K this order, and then
that was just you logging in over and over and over again. Yeah, that's all that was. Yeah,
I mean, and so maybe we could sidetrack for a second here. Erwin Vervecken told us that he would prefer or hope to one day have a model where the women races are on a separate day than the man races. And in the thing that I wrote about this today, I didn't go into it. I just made a little comment where I said, look, I'm not sure that I agree with this being the ideal scenario. And I phrased it like something to get into another time. But as we are close to it anyways, in gravel, because we get to see two races in one, essentially everybody who follows the men's racing also follows the women's racing, almost by necessity. But it also creates the situation that suddenly you know everything about the women's field. And if it is a great season like it was this year, it turns out to be the better one, which then leads me to believe I like it this way, and I think it's good for the sport, and everybody benefits from it.
Yeah,
would you separate them? Would you like it if the women's races were completely separate, a different day?
It's hard for me to even think about it because I would revert to like do whatever they want to do. Like the women themselves, like if they feel like it's better for them to race on the same day because of the kind of marketability side of it, that you have all the eyes that are there on them, then do that. If they feel that the race itself is better, if they're on separate days, then I would say do that. Maybe it's race by race. I would always revert to their collective on how that would go. But I don't mind it. I mean, as like on the same day as like a viewing thing, you'll never have people that are happy. Like you go to these streams that do have the live chats, and then you just have a bunch of people being like popping into the chat and being like, "Where's Drew Dillman? Where's Dylan Johnson?" So that's like never gonna stop. But yeah, I think they just need to have a tracker for certain racers so you always know where they are for the gravel dads out there. But yeah, I think I would say whatever they want is what I would say.
Fair enough.
And I'll adjust my viewing accordingly.
You're still up for one final storyline?
Yep.
The rise and fall, or is it hopefully just a tumble of the Gravel Earth series? So, like this year, to me, it's early this year, I started to follow the arrival of this series in the US gravel media sphere, its rise in relevance. And I think you're a pretty good benchmark for it, because it feels like this year it really arrived, and it felt at some points you were really intrigued by it. Correct me if I'm wrong.
I genuinely didn't know it existed before this year. Yeah. And so, I mean, I don't know that I knew of, maybe I'd heard of the Traka before. I think I'd seen pictures and stuff, but I didn't know like the Graveler series as a brand or as this sort of like ethos that they kind of have going for them.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I didn't know about it literally till like Santaval was starting.
And then it felt like from the outside following your work that you really enjoyed it, and also the vibe and the presentation. And I think many people did, like riders that I talked to and other people following gravel really started to have it on their agenda. And obviously...
Yeah, it had like an alternative feel to it. It had this connect with nature. I think it leaned into that, which I think it should. If you're going to be out in the sticks, as we say, like lean into that.
Yeah.
Whereas in Lifetime, it kind of felt, corporate is the word that gets thrown around a lot. And like, yeah, sure, corporate. But I think it definitely just felt like a triathlon or like the way that you see that marketed or the way you see a road race presented. And it was leaning into being different. And it was a gravel series. Lifetime Grand Prix is not a gravel series.
True.
And so I was very bullish on it. I got super into it. The aesthetics, it was all over the place. There was a bunch of races. And so
the race calendar made it super accessible for North Americans.
Yeah.
With the first cases this year of like North American pros more or less picking it over the Lifetime Grand Prix.
Right.
Not specifically,
more freedom. I guess not a lot of emphasis on every single race you do in the series. Races that were, I think in all gravel races, I think is like the important thing that I think gets in the Lifetime Grand Prix versus Graveler Series discourse. I think Graveler Series being all gravel races gets lost in that sometimes. And so, I want to emphasize that. But I was super, super into it. Their little videos they did were cool. And I rode in a Graveler Series race. It wasn't one of the big ones. There wasn't that many pros there, but it was cool. It's in the Graveler Series logos on the back of my finish line video, like if that matters to you, like I didn't really consider that, but I see it now. So that was Gravel Mexico, of course, was in it last year. And so, I think it's cool. I'm a little hesitant to be like the rise and fall. Like I understand all the critiques. I've read all the critiques. I hear it. It's just, to me, it's just so early to even be like, I don't know what it's going to, like, I'm sure that they at least, like Classmark knows what they're doing. They seem savvy and people don't agree with stuff that they've done. And particularly in regards to like the rift, the all that. And like people have critiques, but it's just so early for me to say, no, like I'm done with it's like terrible or, I think I was talking about this with someone, a couple pros and then like a brand person, but we were all talking and we were like, we don't know if people were saying like no one can possibly do Unbound and then go do Rancho the next week, which is, I believe, how it is in the calendar. And so correct. I was like, it's probably, in my mind, it's probably just for people that aren't going to do Unbound. Yeah. Like it don't, like it's offering something. So like a lot of people don't want to do Unbound, like this idea that everyone wants to go to Kansas and everyone wants to do Unbound and it's the A race on every single person's calendar. Not everyone wants to go to Kansas and ride 200 miles to come out 50th place. A lot of people are leaning in now, I think, as the talent maybe gets more concentrated and starts going to all the same races. Now that there's in the women's field more in the Lifetime Grand Prix and all that, I think the alternative calendar for some of the people that aren't ever going to win a Lifetime race looks more appealing. I was like, I think in my mind, in my sort of, I'm not a racer, I'm not an organizer. I just consume this content and I hear about stuff, down the line. I was like, I would just assume that's who that race was for, like the intention isn't to do both, maybe. Yeah.
And also it's not required because I actually talked with a few pros through their approach to the next season, and there are various ways how you can do Unbound, not do Rancho, and still have enough races in Europe to collect your points. Even collect 3 races where you get your scores from very early and still have a fallback option later in the season. So
not everyone's sponsors. No, I was going to say, not everyone's sponsors are asking for the same thing. Like it's easy to assume that everyone's sponsors, you need to go to Unbound, but from stuff I'm hearing, that is not the case.
Yeah. I mean, what I don't know, and I have, because I wrote this piece about the Rift, before publishing this, I sent a list of questions over to Classmark, and sadly, I didn't get a response from them, because actually I would have loved to get some insights. I wanted to hear it from their side as well. Later on, they responded to a story that was on Velo, and there they had a few quotes which were admittedly weird and rather empty quotes, like the spirit, talking about the spirit of gravel in a piece that is about they stopping their collaboration, or the Rift stopping the collaboration with them, and 2 weeks later they announced their own race in Iceland, which certainly is not a very nice move how to deal with another partner, but we don't need to get into this aspect of it all. I'm actually more interested in, and why I said I hope it's just a tumble, because it felt like they were onto something that could really become a very interesting thing in global gravel, with having branched out to Northern America, not only the US, because I think they had like in total in the Americas, like something like 7, 8, 9 races. I researched it. I forgot the exact number, but they
have
so
like
many
races in like
they had 2 in
Thailand,
Canada,
Philippines, or something like that.
Yeah, there was
Canada.
one. Yeah, exactly. 2 in Canada, I think 4 or 5 in South America, 4 or 5 or so in the US. So a lot of races over there, which made it then very accessible for people from many places in the world. And this certainly has changed, because there are now, I believe, 3 races in the US, none in Canada, I think none in South America. So you could say they almost focused on their home market, more or less. I don't know if that is by necessity. I think it is by choice. I don't know what drove this choice, but I know that some organizers, a fair amount of organizers, didn't even hear back from them. So they wanted to focus the series more. I asked what drove them to this point. I have no insights on this, but what is clearly... it's no longer a global player, it feels like, in the gravel scene. So, and the biggest market for gravel right now is the US. And by more or less going out of the US and the American market, it feels like maybe it's good. Maybe everybody will fall in love with the stuff they do in Europe, even though the star appeal, maybe they have an issue there, because the biggest stars that we're riding in the series are now in the Life Time Grand Prix.
Yeah, and why is that? Is it the prize purse? Like, is that the only reason why? I mean, did they want to ride a drop bar mountain bike really bad? I don't know. I think this like storyline is best handled by getting into next season and then asking the people that are the reason that these series exist. So pros and being like, why are you doing the Lifetime Grand Prix? Why are you doing the Graveler series? And then like through that, you come to the answer of like, why are these existing? I mean, I remember even a year ago, people were like, yeah, I don't know about the Lifetime Grand Prix. Like, I don't know if it's going to last or even going to matter in a year, because who really cares? And blah, blah, blah. And it's at least for 1 year going, it seems bigger than ever. So, that's just next year. We'll see how it plays out.
And funny that you mentioned the prize purse, because funny that you mentioned the prize purse, because not little known, but an often overlooked fact, it feels like, is we don't know what the prize purse of next year's Gravel Earth Series is yet.
Oh, yeah. I tried looking that up when we were talking about that on my podcast, and I couldn't find it.
Yeah, because it's not yet announced. And I remember the following situation pretty clearly from last year. So they announced the prize purse pretty late. I think it was at the beginning of the year, not that long before Santa Val, actually. And allegedly the reason why that was that they were in talks with a potential big sponsor, and they were hoping to have a considerable prize purse. And we So as it's not announced, maybe something like this is still in the books for them. I don't know. I'm just speculating wildly. I know nothing. But the perception among pros could also very quickly change if, say, they suddenly had a very much increased price purse. Because, yes, I think the Lifetime Grand Prix price purse was, if not, certainly not the only factor, but I'm pretty certain that a few people saw this and decided to hand in the application, which they most likely had considered doing anyways.
Yeah, and even with sponsors, I assume most of the money still comes from normies paying entry fees. And so at the end of the day, you still have to have a race that slow people want to go to.
Yeah.
You still have to have a race that's cool and a draw in that way. So,
and that was one of the questions that I sent them, because it almost felt to me, or I was wondering at least, is Classmark probably trying to double down on the mass participation market more than the pro racing market? I mean, that is where they come from with the mountain bike stuff and the trail running stuff they do since a long time in Girona. They also introduced like age groups that have their own ranking for the series and so on. So maybe that is just that they realized we want to double down on the mass participation side. Again, speculating here, but
yeah, I mean, it just depends like where people make their money from, and as far as where the pros go, where they make their money from, and I don't know, and or I mean, I guess I know bits here and there from people I talk to, but I don't like know. That's not my world, and so and then if let's say a Graveler series comes out with a super big prize purse, does everyone just go to that one then? They come out with $60,000 for first place, then does everyone just switch over? And they don't have to drop little sugar. So, yeah, I don't know. It's we'll see. We'll see how it goes. That's why I didn't make any jokes about it. Like, people were like, you should post this and this and that about it. And it's not because I'm like protecting anyone. It's just because I don't fully understand it. So to me, there was nothing really to like. It's like, let it play out, and see how it goes. And then I'll find something to, laugh at. But until then, I don't know, so, but yeah, I mean, I'm not probably, I'm not going to Cuckoo Gravel or the Rift, I imagine, unless Bjork wants to fly me out. So, yeah.
I was just texting with someone from the US, and he said, at one point we all need to meet. And I said, yeah, why not at the Rift in Iceland, which would be roughly in the middle, I feel like.
Oh, yeah, I guess it is. Yeah. I mean, I'd love to do the Rift, and I met some of their people when I was in Big Sugar. They had there was a couple of the organizers there, and they were really cool. And I talked to them, and they were great. And I don't think, it's unfortunate the way that all played out, because they don't seem happy about it. So definitely, but yeah, I don't know. I'm like a wait and see. But the critiques are there, and people have written them, and so go read the Velo News article, Joe Laverick's blog post, your blog post. Yeah.
Is there anything still on top of your mind about the 2025 gravel season that we need to get out before we close the book on it for good?
Yeah, we can talk another hour about mountain bike tires. That's when, if you could go deep into the metrics, then all the male listeners above 45, the retention just shoots up, because that's all they care about. I
assume you're dead. Then you could recommend it to your dad.
Yeah, right. When I was at in Big Sugar doing the panel I did with Matt, and it was more about not dissimilar to what we're talking about now, but these same dialogues on normies and pros and gravel and blah blah blah. And I was talking. I was moderating it and talking to the map pros and, trying to be not too weird because there's like people that don't know who I am that were there. And then at some point I opened it up to questions from the audience. And then the first thing someone asked, there was no real tech talk involved in it. It was all kind of culture stuff. But the first thing someone asked is like a middle-aged guy saying like, what tires are you running?
What the people really want to know.
The people really want to know. Yeah. That's what the people really care about. And then I'm like, they're just going to say the tires that they, sponsored by... You sponsored by Maxxis? You sponsored by Continental? Sponsored by Schwalbe? Like, that's who you're going to say you ride for?
Yeah.
That's fine. Yeah, storylines. I mean, I don't know. This was the year where...
You eventually switched. That is the end. The year ends on you coming to the conclusion that the best gravel setup for you is a do-it-all road bike and cyclocross tires.
Right. I just reverted to... Did away with the tire width, did away with any suspension, and I just put cyclocross tires on my Trek Madone, and it was an overall sort of miserable experience, but it made for funny videos. And I mean,
it's timely and it's
my
current.
gravel bike with 45C, which is in some people's mind basically a road tire. My gravel bike with 45C tires on pavement is faster than that, or at least not any slower than that bike was on pavement. Those tires were so slow. The Specialized S-Works Terra something, that was their cyclocross tires. Yeah. So yeah, it just ends on like the most mutated, disgusting form of this sport is instead of going the wide tire trend, just get the road bike and put the narrowest knobby tires you've ever seen in your life.
And you will still get people who tell you that is how it's supposed to be. Like on one of the recent Escape Collective stories I did, people are arguing exactly about this, that like gravel was invented long before it came to the US, or it was done in Europe just on road bikes with cyclocross tires. So
yeah, it's like what I always say, gravel is a state of mind. It's not a surface. You take gravel where you go.